If you or possibly even your parents are considering moving into a 55 plus community, there's some information in this video that I think you're going to want to see. There's a lot of things people don't realize about these 55 plus communities that they just don't think of when they're on the surface when you start looking at them. I've been doing a couple of videos lately about different places to live in retirement. I just did one on living in Puerto Rico that's doing really well. If that's interesting, you can go check out that video. But I also did one about moving to Spain and kind of compared the cost of living in these different areas compared to Florida, Puerto Rico, Spain. And the last time I was visiting my parents, they were kind of thinking about, they were toying with the idea of getting out of their big house and getting into something smaller and getting into a 55 plus community. So I started doing some research on this topic, and I found some things that may shock you. So I'm gonna go over a lot of the things that may negatively impact you or your parents' retirement and their finances and their enjoyment in life and moving into one of these 55 plus communities. So let's get into the video right now.
Shut up and sit down.
Real quick before we get into this video, I'm Jeff. This is the Retirement Mentality channel, just in case we've never met. I'm here to change your mentality and how you think about retirement. I try to do videos about things that I don't see a lot of other people talking about on the internet or on the YouTubes. So I try to just create some conversations to get you thinking about different things. And this 55 plus community is something that I hadn't put a lot of thought into. It's not really something that I'm considering, but since my parents are thinking about it, and they're at the age where they're not really doing a lot of their own research. So a lot of those things fall onto me to try to, prepare them for what to expect. And this first one, I think, is one of the biggest things about these 55 plus communities that may shock you. The second one's pretty big. Actually, a lot of these could have a big impact, not only on finances, but on, like I said in the intro, on your enjoyment. So the first one I want to talk about is HOAs. Just because you're buying a single family house in a lot of these 55 plus communities, they still operate under an HOA a lot like a condo building does. And the rules and the regulations that they have in these HOAs can be very, very restrictive. So I actually have access to one. I'm going to pull it up on my computer here. This thing is 9 pages long. I promise I'm not going to read you the whole rules and restrictions. This is just Exhibit B of the restrictions. I want to go over a couple of them. Single family use only for the properties. That's pretty obvious. That's not a big deal. The second one is about nuisance, and it's just pretty vague about that. If they think you're being a nuisance, you can be in big trouble. No improper use of the property, no hazardous, That's pretty standard stuff. You're not allowed to lease out any portion of the home. So let's say maybe your spouse died and your sister wanted to move in, or you wanted to get a roommate. That stuff's not allowed in here. Removal of sod or shrubbery. And also, it goes into saying you're not allowed to add any sod or shrubbery. So if you thought you were going to do a little bit of gardening as you retired, not in one of these 55 plus communities. You're not allowed to plant anything. You're not allowed to take any of their plants out. There's another one in here. It says additional landscaping prohibited. No antenna or aerials. No ham radios are allowed. Nothing that protrudes off of your roof. You're required to pick up trash around your own house. No signs, no signage on your house. This is a big one here. Animals and pets. Each home is permitted to have 3 domestic pets, dogs, cats, and birds, in the home with prior written permission of the board. It goes on to list what pets are acceptable, what pets are not acceptable. So you've got to get approval from the board. So if you have 1 dog, 1 cat, 1 bird, that's it. If you have 2 cats and a dog and a bird, no sir, that's not going to fly. See what I did there? So they can restrict the number of pets you have in this specific one. They all will do this. So it's something you have to think about. If you're a crazy cat lady and you got 6 cats, you're not moving into probably a 55 plus community. No temporary buildings, no tents, no trailers, no shacks, no sheds, no other building structures. So you couldn't put a little lawn thing in the backyard. You couldn't put a little she shed or a little man shed out there. None of that. No fences. This one says you're not allowed to fence your property. So if you have 2 cats and a dog, or 3 dogs and no birds and no cats, you're not putting any fences around your property to keep them in, because they don't want any fences in the neighborhood at all. No owner may engage in any actions which may reasonably be expected to result in an increase in the rate of any insurance policy or policies covering the respect to any portion of the property, blah, 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 blah. No mining, no drilling, no excavation. So maintenance of the property goes into how you have to maintain the property. So I'm gonna stop here. I think you get the idea of like how restrictive these covenants and codes and restrictions can be in these HOA neighborhoods. They may tell you that you can only have one car or two vehicles, or they have to be in the garage, or you can't park your boat, or you can't leave a boat trailer, or you can't have a camper. So a lot of these things, if you want to spend 3 months out of the year camping and you think you're going to have a camper, you may have to pay to put it somewhere else, or your boat, you may have to pay to put your boat and keep it in the water somewhere because you may not be able to park your boat in front of your house. So these are all things that you got to think about ahead of time, and you really need to get a copy of these rules and regulations for any 55 plus communities you or your family members might be thinking about moving into, because it really can put a big dent in your enjoyment there. The second one I want to mention is a lot of these 55 plus communities are new communities. The one that my mom wanted to show me was a brand new community. They had like 8 model homes all set up on a little cul-de-sac. You could go in each one of the homes, and they got progressively more expensive. And the ones my mom is most interested in are all the new communities, which is, there's 2 things to that. One is, depending on who the builder is, I've been in one of these 55 plus communities that they're in the process of building out in the town I live in right now. And the building quality is atrocious. I went and showed my parents a couple, I'm not gonna call out any subdivisions by name, but I showed my parents a couple houses in one of these communities when they were here probably 6-7 months ago. And I saw 2-inch gaps around exterior windows and trim that didn't line up, and just horrible things just at a quick glance that was just really shoddy construction. So you got to be sure who the builder is. But the other side of this is a lot of older people want the new communities. They want the turnkey. They want the new fancy looking granite countertops and things. And so the 55 plus communities that they built 10 years ago, it can be harder to sell in those properties. And you're saying, well, yeah, but I'm looking at the new one. Well, yeah, if you're 55, 65, 70 years old and you're going to live in it for 10 or 20 years, it may be very hard to sell it, especially if you want to sell it and then move into, you might need a little bit more care. You need to sell that house to get out of it, and you need that money to go into an assisted living facility or somewhere where you need more care. Then you may have a hard time selling it. You may sell it for a loss. I'm not predicting the future of appreciation. I'm just saying the new shiny thing is always what people want in these 55 plus communities. So, and you have a limited demographic of people you can sell it to, because people have to be 55 plus. So there's no new young home buyers coming into the neighborhood to raise a family. It's only 55 plus people. And if those people don't want to live in the newer, fancier 55 plus community that are building right down the road, then they're going to pay less for one that's 10 or 20 years old. So it's something to think about if you think you're going to have to resell it at some point. The other part of that equation too is the new fancy one is always more expensive. So if you're buying when they're brand new, you could be buying at the top of the market. So they cost more than what a single family house in a regular subdivision is going to cost, because they're selling the amenities and the things that come with this new fancy 55 plus community. So they're charging a premium on top of it, which you may not be able to get that premium again when you go back to sell it. Number 3 is a lot of these 55 plus communities, people think that they want to be in there and be closer to medical services and that sort of thing. But the truth is, a lot of these 55 plus communities don't have they don't offer medical services. They don't have on-site medical personnel. They may be farther away from the hospital. I know the ones that they're building here are actually farther away from the hospitals than being in town. So, and if they do offer any sort of medical services, it gets way expensive. The price of the HOA fees and the monthly fees goes up very quickly. So be sure you know, if you're looking for medical services, what's being offered, and be sure you know upfront how much those cost, and then what is included. Like, do you get an extra charge if you actually use them? Sometimes they have a 24-hour registered nurse on duty, but then if you go and use that service, then they hit you with an additional fee. So be sure you understand very well what medical services are provided in your community, if any, and what they cost and what's included with those costs. Number 4 is, how do I put this? A lot of the things that people look at these communities as pros are also the cons. So one of the people, you might think it's a pro that there's no kids running around, it's all people the same age as me. But the con of that is there's no kids running around, it's all people the same age as you. There's very little diversity. So a lot of times, a lot of people that look exactly like you. And these things are full of Karens. I'm telling you, there is the gossip level, the clique level, the like little groups of people that band together, and you could get ostracized if you don't like pickleball, or you have a green golf cart, or whatever. You're not into wild sex parties, I don't know, whatever it may be in the community that you live in. it can be hard to get into the cliques, just like in high school and the little groups of people. So, and the gossip level, and there's just everybody knows your business in there, and there's not a lot of privacy. So you got to kind of know that that's the lifestyle that maybe you're into that. Maybe you'd like to be the gossip queen of the whole neighborhood. And so you could try to take on the Karen who's already doing that. But there's a lot of Karen activity in these places. And so that could be a pro or it could be a con for you. And number 5 are the amenities. We mentioned earlier, they use the amenities to sell these communities, but a lot of times you may be paying for a lot of these amenities that you're not using. Maybe you're not into woodworking, but they have a great wood shop that you have lathes and tools you can use. Or maybe they charge for bingo night. They got to pay somebody to come in and do the bingo thing, and there's a $5 per month charge, but you hate bingo. You may be paying for things that you're not using. And another side of this is maybe you wanted a gym and you wanted the tennis courts and blah, blah, blah. But maybe the gym doesn't have the rowing machine that you like, and the one that you pay $20 a month in town does. But then you're like, well, I'm already paying for this gym. It's free because I already paid my HOA fee. So I don't want to go pay $20 more to go to the gym in town, but I really want that rowing machine. So you may be stuck with some amenities that aren't your favorite. The same if they have concerts or dances, and the older you get, especially, you're going to use less of these amenities, and you may still be paying for them. So it may sound great for the first 5 years, but maybe for the next 10 years, maybe you're paying for a lot of amenities that you're not using, that if you would have just bought in a regular subdivision, you wouldn't have those fees, and you could maybe even spend a little bit more on activities that are more interesting to you because you're only paying when you want to use them. And those are my 5 things that may be detrimental to your finances and or happiness if you're thinking about moving into a 55 plus community. If you know somebody who lives in one, or you will live in one, or you're thinking about it, leave me any comments down below of things I might not have thought about. And if you like this video, go watch this video over here where I tell you what the biggest retirement mistake you could be making is. It's not what you think it is. Go watch this video next.